Hi, my name's DC Surface, and I want to welcome you to the Airplane Partnerships Group. And today we're coming to you doing an interview from Sun and Fun 2025. This is Friday, and it's very hot here in Florida. I think we're supposed to set records again today for the third day in a row. So who knew? But anyway, it's beautiful weather down here right now. And I have a friend of mine, Neal, here, and I will want to talk to you about an actual airplane partnership that Neal used to be in. And if you've been around Atlanta for any length of time, you are probably familiar with the Bonanza 5. Matter of fact, they have the bonanza5.com if you want to go and look at some of their stuff. But the Bonanza 5 is a flying club that started back in 1987. And they started with one A36 Bonanza. Who doesn't want an A36 Bonanza, right? And they started with an A36 Bonanza and 5 members. That was their limit. When another hangar came available, they added a second A36, and this is when Neal got involved, is when they had 10 members and 2 A36 Bonanzas. And today they actually have 3. So another hangar came available at PDK. If you don't know anything about PDK, it's an extremely busy, one of the busiest corporate airports, I think, in the country. And getting a hangar there is very, very tough. But you definitely don't keep an A36 out on a tie down. So that was kind of, I guess, one of the requirements of them. So I just wanted to talk to Neal and let you guys know how well that partnerships work. And we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about this. And Neal, I got a question for you.
Sure.
So what made you look for an airplane partnership, and how did you get involved in the Bonanza 5?
Well, I had a regional sales job that I had like 3-4 of the states, but then they increased to 7, and it just driving wasn't feasible. Airlines wasn't feasible because they didn't go where my customers were. So an airplane. So I had tried a couple of flying clubs. There was one out at Cobb County Airport. Even then was one with the FAA, but it just didn't fit the bill. I guess it just didn't things I didn't like. Mm-hmm. So one day I was going through the paper in Atlanta, and there was a spot open. Mm-hmm. And so I did the investigation, talked to the president, John Post, very nice, and he was also CFR. And then the owner of what I was going to take over, he was moving, so he needed to sell it. So I bought his position for $18,000 at mid 90s. Mm-hmm. Primary use, probably 90% of my use was for sales calls. Uh-huh. From Virginia to Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, the Carolinas, of course. And it worked out very well because the way they had set it up, your indirect cost was billed to you on a monthly amount. At that time, it was about $450. That covered anything that was not directly from flying. It was like your insurance, your hangar, mm-hmm. so forth, mm-hmm. and maintenance. Your annual maintenance that comes no matter if you ever fly it. Mm-hmm. So and then they had a wet cost per flight hours, which worked back then. Fuel prices were pretty stable, and they were able to work it that way. It worked. If you bought fuel away from the PDK, you just submitted your receipts, and they deduct that from the flight hour cost. Mm-hmm. I think at the time it was about $75 an hour, which was extremely comfortable.
A lot different than today, huh?
Yeah. And with that, one thing, I went through a IRS audit and come through clean. Everything was perfect, mm-hmm. and no pushbacks at all. Once I showed them all my documents, my logbook, so forth, it just worked very, very well. about 5 years later, my job disappeared because the company in Austria went bankrupt. So, so I went in and sold my position for $20,000, and with that, in that interim, they sold one airplane and bought a newer one, and then the other airplane needed to have a engine overhaul, or they swapped engines. And I, an aircraft mechanic by trade, I would help the A&P that they worked in in the airfield. It would help if something was needed for two people, especially like swapping engines, things like that. But typically, I was so busy with my job, I didn't have a lot to do. What I would do is look at the books and make sure things were being done, ADs or anything like that, because there is one AD you do have to do yearly on the tail, some inspections. So, but from the way that it was operated was very professional, very personal. We would have pretty much every month we would have a meeting with all the other pilots, discuss anything, the airplane, because they were talking about updating we had Lorans in the two aircraft. They wanted to go to GPS. Everybody liked that because Loran was going to be going away. And it has. So, and then we also had a Christmas party where the family and so forth went. So it was, you got to know everybody else. And I would say about half of the 10 people, they were professional sales, or they traveled for business. The other half was more using recreational. Like we had an eye doctor. We had businesses owners, so forth. And so as far as getting on the books to use airplanes, for me, because 90% of my flights were done during the week for business, very often I would have to pick between the two airplanes. And only a couple times couldn't get an airplane, but I called this gentleman that goes to Florida a lot, and I was going to Florida. I said, "Hey, where are you going?" He says, "Tampa." I said, "So am I." I said, "Can we split the cost?" And we were great. It was not a problem. We knew each other because everybody was in contact. We had the contracts were done properly by attorney. They had a CPA. You got your IRS book. Some documents from them every year. It just was clean and very professionally handled. And at the time, it been around quite a while, and I think we did. You said for an 86 to 87. So it has been a very, very positive experience. But it was done right. That's the key thing.
And that is interesting that the Bonanza 5 has been around since 1987. I mean, that's 38 years. That's pretty impressive. And the funny thing about your story is telling us that you found it in the newspaper in the ads. That's exactly how I found my first partnership back in the day. And back in the day, you had to look there. There was no social media. There was no Facebook. There was no website or anything like that per se to go look for this stuff. So where there's a will, there's a way, definitely, to find yourself into a partnership. Let me ask you real quick. How was the scheduling like? Because you used it a lot for business, and there was two at that time. There was two A36s in the group.
Right.
How did you find scheduling? I know you just shared the story about sharing the cost going to Tampa, but outside of that, was it fairly easy to get an airplane, and how many days would you normally be gone with it?
Well, when I first started with it, most of the time I was in the group, they had a grandmother that kept the books for the airplanes, and you would call her, and she'd put you in. And some people would book ahead, weeks-wise. For me, a lot of times I had a call that day because somebody said, "Hey, you got to get down here or up there, wherever you're going to be." So I would say at least 90% of the time, I always could get an airplane, and a lot of times I had the had the choice of either airplane.
Yeah.
So that just worked.
Yeah. So most of your trips were basically out and back, and not gone for 2 or 3 days at a time, right?
No, really, typically they were, because I would, maybe I had one customer to go see, but I also then would try to find other places to go as well. And then one time I went to Chicago for 10 days with the airplane.
Yeah.
We had a big show there at McCormick Place.
Yeah.
And this is back before Midway, not Midway, the little airport that was on the water.
That they destroyed.
Yeah, overnight.
Done away with it now. Yeah.
But it was so great to be able to land there, grab a cab. 5 minutes later, I'm at the McCormick Place.
Yeah.
I mean, and I figured out the time it took to go by airplane was way more time than flying to Bonanza nonstop to that airport.
Yeah. Well, I guess, and then the beauty again of being in a partnership like that is that they didn't have any restrictions on you for time that you had to have in other words, you could fly as much as you wanted. I'm gone for 10 days. If it was 5 hours back and 5 hours back, or 5 hours out and 5 hours back, it totaled 10 hours in 10 days. That was okay.
Yeah.
It didn't have a minimum per day that requirement on you like a lot of the FBOs and stuff do when you rent an airplane.
Right.
Yeah. So that's very interesting.
And I think having a balanced group, with balance I mean recreation versus business, really made it work.
Yeah.
Because you were really competing for the airplane with 5 people, not 10.
Yeah.
Typically.
Well, did you find that usually the 80-20 rule applied, that like 20% of you were pretty active in the airplanes, and the other 80% just somewhat active, or how did you, were there real active members in it? Or?
80 would not be right. It would be more 60, 70 versus.
Yeah.
Because we had a good group that kept current.
Yeah.
And no, that's something else. We were required to have an instrument rating in order to be able to join. And I am very, very, very positive about having to have an instrument rating. Yeah. It's the only way to fly an airplane, to have that rating.
Yeah, and I think that's their requirement today. I think you have to have 500 hours total time and an instrument rating, which is not uncommon or not unheard of, especially for a complex airplane like an A36 Bonanza. I mean, that's the top of the heap, and that's probably a minimum requirement, and that's a good thing. Yeah. Did you guys ever have any disciplinary actions or any mishaps with any of the members or anything in the group during the time that you were in there? In other words, did anybody cause any hangar rash or prop strikes or anything like that took the airplane out of service for a while?
Not during the time I was in. No, previous to me, there was somebody had a gear up malfunction.
Gear up's a big one.
Yeah. But that that was some time before me. I just heard about it. Yeah, that's about it.
It'd be interesting to know how they handle that, because like a gear up's going to take the airplane out of service for, I don't know, 6 months to a year maybe.
Yeah.
And so it'd be interesting to see how they handled that when all the other members had no access, so they had loss of use.
But the good thing there is having multiple aircraft.
Yeah.
It helps a lot.
Yeah. Now, but 10 of you now are trying to schedule one airplane versus 2. So. Yeah. But even at that rate, I got to believe that there's still a high probability of the airplane being available whenever you wanted to go somewhere.
And like I say, being able to, contact the other members to see where they were going, see if somehow we could work it out. Sometimes it was one time the eye doctor, he was going on a trip, and I needed to go, and his whole family was going, so it didn't work.
Yeah.
But 9 out of 10 times it worked. We were having that bond, if you will, being able to meet every month and having parties. You know, it's hard to say no.
Yeah,
to somebody you know.
It really is. It really is. Well, it sounded like overall this was a very positive experience for you. Now, is this the only two airplanes that you've owned, or were you a sole owner of any other airplanes? I know you have a pretty extensive background, especially military. You're a veteran, and I want to say thank you for your service for that.
Sure.
But tell everybody a little bit about your background and what you fly and have flown.
Well, it's kind of started up when I started taking flying lessons back in Wisconsin. I was not quite 15 years old. So by the time I was 16, which if you don't know, is the minimum age. For a student pilot's license. Mm-hmm. And I had 20 hours by the time I sold on my birthday.
Oh, there you go.
I took off of school and I didn't have a driver's license yet.
Yeah, that's a great way to play. A great thing to play hooky for, anyway.
Yeah, and I learned in a Super Cub, and I would have anybody that's going to get into it. I still believe learning to fly a tail dragger will make you a better pilot no matter what you're flying.
Stick and rudder always is the way to go.
Yeah, and I think we're losing a lot of that today. A lot of these, like that, for instance, that aircraft that crashed in Toronto. I think it's going to come out where there were some really serious things done wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then I went to aircraft mechanics school, and then I went to work for an air cargo place in Janesville, Wisconsin, and they had bought a Bonanza, the 35, I guess, T-tail, and I got to fly it for $15 an hour.
Oh wow!
Wet.
Yeah.
So I used
of course, that was back in the day.
Yeah, so I used that airplane a lot. But then also I got to fly with they had 12 Twin Beach airplanes that had 8 DC-3s that we did maintenance. But I also got to be co-pilot on the Twin Beach a lot because these guys were flying tremendous hours, especially during the build-out for the new year cars. And they were happy to have somebody because they were over there next to me sleeping. I fly out to New York or something. But then I got involved with looking at the Army Aviation, and I went through all the tests, which took how long, different things you had to do, and was accepted to the Warrant Officer Flight Training School.
Okay.
At that point, I had about 200 hours with a private, and my hope was that I'd be able to get into fixed wing. But those slots were very limited, and when we got to the facility where you were getting assigned to what company you were going to be training with, they started, who's got this many hours, and then we got close to mine. So I ended up in helicopters.
Yeah.
And then 9 months later, I ended up being my top graduate at number 1, and they gave me additional training in Chinook. I got 6 weeks of training in a large helicopter, which I then went to Vietnam, and that's what I flew for about almost 1,000 hours.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, you first half you co-pilot, and the other half you typically you'd be aircraft control manager.
What kind of missions were you guys flying with the Chinook in Vietnam?
Well, the primary purpose of the Chinook was to move artillery.
Okay.
That's the primary mission.
Yeah.
Everything else, in between.
Yeah.
We did recover a lot of downed aircraft, particularly Hueys, Cobra gunships, things like that, and then resupplying the fire bases was a big part of our activity. So, and then there was times where the weather was horrible, and you still had to go because it was emergency call out for you had someplace being overrun, and they needed an ammo. They were running out of ammo. You had to go. Yeah, and it was pretty hairy, to say the least. Then one time we called we were called to work with the Braves people. It was two Air Force cargo cargo airplane that went crashed at around 10,000 feet during extremely weather. I mean, the wet season.
Mm-hmm.
The weather just is horrible.
Mm.
They crashed both of them at around 10,000 feet. One of them hit a peak, opened up the belly, and hit another peak, and all the troops that were on board, 200, dropped out of the belly.
Oh.
And that was a major undertaking to get that. And we took artillery up there to support them. And then with slings, we had to bring the bodies back. It was 30 days after when the weather actually got clear. That was a horrible situation. But so the year went by, and got back. I ended up being stationed in Fort Hood, Texas, with the first cav. They were doing some testing with different ways to do the missions, and we flew. Ended up in Huey's then, and flew for 2 hours. 2 years there, every day almost. We flew a lot, and at night, no lights. This is before night vision goggle.
Yeah, yeah.
And in formation, where you were in B's to threes, and if you were on the right side, you could have flown off the guys next to you's attitude.
Yeah.
Horizon. That's how close you were.
That's close.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like I said, then I got out of the Army. They're throwing everybody out. They ain't the same anymore.
Yeah.
So I went back to being an aircraft mechanic for several years, and then got a job flying a civilian helicopter, Jet Ranger. And there I put about 2,000 hours.
Oh, wow.
Doing that. And so then let's see.
You got an extensive background flying in both fixed wing and helicopters.
Yeah, I probably
a lot of helicopters.
About 6,000 helicopters and 2,000 hours of airplanes.
Yeah.
And of course, I have a commercial helicopter, fixed wing, multi-engine fixed wing, instrument, both helicopter and airplane. And I just believe, again, instrument is the way to go. And one thing I found with the Bonanza more than anything was it was so much easier just to fly on IFR. I don't care if it was a day like today here, because they do all the work for you.
Yeah, nothing like them taking you by the hand and delivering you on the other end and
they tell
dropping you off.
They tell you what frequency to go to. Yeah. You've got an MOA, they'll get you across it or around it. It's automatic. Yeah. It's not being on autopilot, you might say. And
well, let me ask you this: what is the future hold for Neal for aviation? Are you ever going to get back into another partnership or fly anything? Or
I had got the bug.
Yeah. Of course, coming to Sun and Fun helps that, right?
Oh yeah. And last year I went to Oshkosh the first time in my life, and that was amazing. This place is very amazing. But my goal is promise or goal.
What's your promise to yourself?
Yeah, there you go. Is to try to build an airplane.
Okay. Do you have anything in mind?
Yes, a RAN S-21.
Okay.
I originally wanted to do, because you can do either a tail or tricycle. And excuse me a second. Shut this off. Yeah, they offer it either way, which some of the other manufacturers for kits don't offer tail.
Yeah.
But then I kind of rethought that, because when I was reading and listening to some people that work for insurance companies, they will uprate you no matter what your experience is in a tail driver. So I'm kind of rethinking that.
Rethinking it? Well, that'd be a great project to work on, especially since you're AMP. It seems to always add a little more value to experimental whenever an A&P's building it.
That's exactly right. I see guys, they automatically they put their A&P in it, they built it, and that does have value. Yeah. But the biggest problem that I have in the land area is someplace to build hangars.
You have to find something with detachable wings so you can build it in your garage, then take it down to the airport.
Wish I had a garage.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
That's what's holding me back. I almost ordered a kit, and I would be picking it up right now.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't find it. Yeah. And like where the Bonanza 5 are located, right now, if I was trying to get a hangar there, I would have to put a $500 down just to be on the list. That might be for hours. For years before you ever get a spot. Yeah. So, and I've tried we got a lot of other airports around, and they're the same way.
Yeah, all the airports around Atlanta, for those of you who don't know or live around Atlanta, it's just really, really tough to get a hangar. And when you do get one, it's pretty expensive, and the wait list is measured in years, not months or days.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge, yeah. So.
And the biggest goes along with that. A lot of these like PDK, Cobb County, different ones, the bigger GA airports, they're not building any more team hangars.
Yeah, no.
They're going after the corporate, the jet people.
Yeah.
And they just forgot about us.
Yeah, well, and it's super hard even to get a space in a shared hangar. So you get a big corporate hangar like that you just going to wait years to even get a shared space in one. So yeah, I know it's painful. So.
And I checked around. It's probably within an hour's drive around Atlanta, there's probably I don't know 8 airports for general aviation, and they're all the same way. Yeah. So
yeah. Well, Neal, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your stay here, your time here at Sun and Fun to come talk to us. Again, the Bonanza 5 is a pretty popular group and been around for a really long time, which says a lot about airplane partnerships and your experience and stuff with them. And that's kind of like what we're all about, is just trying to educate everybody out there on getting into an airplane partnership and having that affordable way of owning an airplane. So again, I want to thank you for your service, and I want to thank you for your time here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here at Sun and Fun.
Sure will. I have one solution. Having sitting on your forum twice now, I really appreciate what you're doing.
Okay.
Because you are laying it out exactly the way it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that is huge.
Yeah.
And you have this wonderful what do you call it? Your format. It's and with 47,000 people.
Yeah, we got 47,000 members in our Facebook group. So
that's that you're doing it right.
Yeah. And
I really appreciate what you're doing for the whole community.
Yeah, and I appreciate that too, because we are it's truly just a labor of love and trying to educate. I'm a huge advocate for airplane partnerships. I've been in them myself on 7 planes and partnerships, and all of them have been great experiences, very much like yours in Bonanza 5. And it's just trying to reach that person that thinks this is out of reach for them or not affordable for them. And it's really not. I mean, I'm not going to say it's cheap, but I mean, again, if you can afford to go buy a bass boat or a sports car or something like that, you can certainly afford to get into aviation if that's your love and you're bitten by the bug, which most of us are. And so, but again, okay, well, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate everybody, and I hope you have a nice day, the rest of your day here at Sun and Fun.
It's great weather. Come on down.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.